I'm always talking about using your podcast as a means to get high ticket clients. And today we're going to talk about that on the highest end of high ticket. And specifically, we're going to talk about building relationships with corporations. So, welcome into It's Not Just Talking, the show for experts who are the business and use a podcast as their marketing engine. I'm your executive producer and podcast strategist, Vince Quinn, and we sit down today with Shayna Davis. Now, Shayna is fantastic, totally gets it. She's talking about advanced stuff today, things like how to use the podcast to land corporate contracts, expanding partnerships beyond just the podcast, and how to apply your specific expertise to a broader audience. So, all of that starts right here. Shayna, you help people with podcasts get corporate contracts and corporate sponsors, which first off, ooh, that's interesting. Which is why I had to have you on. So, what is that? What does that mean? Please explain what you do.
Yeah, I first want to share why this is so important and why I'm so passionate about this. So oftentimes, and you know this, Vince, that when the gurus are giving us the advice on ways to monetize our show, you typically hear have affiliate links, sell some merchandise, get some ad spots, which are usually pennies, and if you're real sophisticated, they tell you to sell a course. Now, I'm not here to say that if you're doing those things that you should stop doing them or they're a problem. But for me, that's not really going to make you serious money. And I didn't go into podcasting or business or any of those things to step over dollars when I could, and just to get to dimes. And so, what I teach podcast hosts is that it really doesn't have even as much to do with your show. You're not getting a corporate contract for your show. You're not getting a corporate sponsor for your show. You're getting it because of your show. And what I mean by that is you're using your podcast as just one of the ways that you position yourself as an expert and as a viable brand. And so if you are already sharing your expertise, your service, your message, your mission, whatever the reason is that your show exists, you can also take that same level of message, expertise, and service, and you can get a company to bring you in to teach those types of things to their people and pay you a lot of money. Or if you're having events online, offline, if you have a list, if you have a newsletter, think about all of the different ways that you're serving your audience. You now can get a much bigger sponsorship for your show and the entire ecosystem than you would if you were just like, sponsor my show.
Yeah, so I love that because and this is why I wanted to talk to you so badly is because I think we're very much aligned in terms of approach. Like I hate affiliate deals. I think it's a waste of your time trying to get sponsorships in that kind of way. Let me build an audience to get sponsorships is ridiculous because the whole thing is sponsors want your audience because you have an audience and they want to sell to it. So like why are you creating something for other people to sponsor it and sell to your audience? Sell to your audience, you know?
Absolutely. And hopefully, and I think this is the case for most podcasters, is that your podcast is not the only way that you serve your audience. So why would you want to limit your revenue to just having someone give you money for access to your podcast audience when you're also serving your audience in multiple different ways? You're just limiting yourself and actually doing a disservice to all of the time, energy, and effort that you've put into building an audience in different places, whether it's online or offline.
So that's the beautiful thing. And what's so cool about it is you take it in this direction that I've never heard before, which is getting somebody to not just partner with the show, but it is to partner with you and the ecosystem that you've built. So just to add a little more detail, I mean, what does that look like? If you get to a point where, hey, I've got the show and I've got this whole big business, like what is that corporate partnership? How does that go?
There's a couple of different ways that it can look, but the two primary ones are one, the sponsorship, where you're bringing the corporation to you in what it is that you're already doing. But then there's a lot of money to be made on the contract side. That's when the corporation is bringing you and your expertise or the service that you offer to them. So, what that looks like is let's just use the example of a podcast host that has a show that is all about being healthier, losing weight, like being at your optimal health, right? What we know is that a person that is at their optimal health, that they also perform better professionally. So let's just say they've got the podcast and that's what the podcast is about, but they also have a business where in their business they're teaching moms how to be healthier so that they can be better moms, or they're teaching business owners how to be healthier so that they can be more effective as business leaders. You also could take that exact same level of expertise, those exact same frameworks, the exact same coaching model, whatever it is that you do to help people improve their health in order to improve their performance, and go into a corporation. You could contact someone, let's just say it's the head of HR, and you say to the head of HR, listen, John, I know that when leaders are more healthy, that they perform better at work. And when they perform better at work, they're going to manage their teams better. They're going to make your company more money. All of the different things that benefit a corporation if their leaders are optimizing their performance. And they're like, oh, wow, never thought about that. So then you can go in and you can do a workshop where they'll probably pay you thousands of dollars to come in and pay and deliver the workshop. You might say, I want to work with your leaders one on one, or in small groups. That might be $50,000. They might bring you in to consult with them of how they could put the right types of programs in to the programs that they're offering all of their employees. That might be six figures. So there's a ton of opportunities of how it can look. But at the baseline, a sponsorship is bring the corporation to you and what it is that you've built. A contract is take your level of expertise or your service and give it to them. So you're doing the exact same thing, just to someone who has more money to pay you.
Yeah, and I love that because here's the thing with corporations, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about the ability to actually reach these people because you mentioned and you with the way you talk about it, it sounds so casual, and I think when people initially approach it, because for me, for example, when I first got into podcasting as a business, I left corporate radio, I had this job, or I started the business, and the idea of reaching out to like a big name brand was terrifying. It's just like, this is this 100-floor tall building, and I'm one small person on the street. How could I possibly, like, I'm going to write the greatest email ever to their contact page and hope that they'll reply. Like, I totally psyched myself out and made it way bigger than it was. So, like, yeah, can you just talk more about that approach? I want to make these connections. I think my business is ready. I've got a clear mission. I think I can help these corporations. How do I get in touch?
I'm trying not to laugh, not
No,
because
please
that's
laugh
funny.
at me, by the way. You can
Not
laugh at me as
because
much
that's
as you
funny
want.
because you said it. It's funny because that was the exact same way that I thought and the way that so many of my clients thought as well. And the reason why is because we see the company as the building and not the people that work inside it.
Yes.
And so when you have that shift of you're talking to people that work for this company, but they have goals that they have to meet and things that they're trying to accomplish in their role, just like you are as the podcast host, just like you are as the business owner. So, again, if you're already having conversations with someone about why they should come on your show, if you're already having conversations with someone about how your product or service or expertise can help them, you're going to be having the exact same conversation with people and not a building. But it is about talking about the benefit to them and not necessarily you and your process, et cetera, which hopefully that's very similar to what it is that you're doing in your own business as well. So the very first thing that you have to do is you have to ask yourself, who is the decision maker for what it is that I offer? If you offer sales training, don't go to human resources. Look for the senior vice president of sales, or look for the business unit leader in the area that you're in. But if you offer any type of coaching, consulting, leadership development, anything that is going to help their people improve outside of a specific skill set like sales, marketing, then oftentimes you can always start with the head of HR because they are the people inside of these companies, and they're the ones that are responsible for making sure that people have access to the training and development that they need so that they can do their jobs better and so that they can keep them. So there's three things that a corporation cares about. They care about making money, they care about saving money, and they care about how well their teams are performing. There's a lot of other things they care about, but they usually fall within kind of these buckets. So you have to ask yourself, who is the decision maker, right? So if it is anything regarding the people, go to the head of HR. If you offer something for marketing, try to find somebody as high up the food chain as you can in marketing. Sales, same thing. So then you have to ask yourself, what is it that they are really looking to accomplish? And how is it that my product or service can help them accomplish that? So when you reach out to John or Jane, whoever it is that you want to have as your fictitious decision maker for the sake of this conversation, you have to speak to John or Jane about what it is that you know they care about. What most of us start with is, I'm Shayna. I've been in business for 20 years. I'm fast. I'm good. I'm better than the rest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they don't get past that. If you reach out to Jane and you say, Jane, I know one of the things that you are always concerned about, we're sticking with this health coaching thing, right? Jane, I know that one of the things as an HR leader that you're always concerned about is how you can attract and retain top talent, because people in HR, they care massively about how they attract or retain top talent. And then you can say, I help companies like yours to be able to attract and retain the best talent. I would love for us, and this is the key, I would love us to have a conversation about how I could support you. Here's why that's so important. If you start talking about specifically what it is that you do and how it is that you do it, they're going to make a decision based off of that. What you want them to make a decision based off of is you having a conversation with them about exactly what it is that they're looking to achieve, what they have tried that has not worked, what they would like to try, and then you're able to give them a specific solution of how you can help them solve exactly what it was that they just told you the problem is that they have. Because if you say, I help them with their health and so and so and so and so, if they don't understand that or you didn't do a good job of articulating that, they're more likely to just say, I don't think we need that. And they're either not going to respond to you, or if they did respond to you, they're going to respond negatively, like, I don't really think that that fits into the scope of what it is that we need right now. And I can guarantee you, unless you're one of my clients, you have no idea how to back out of that.
Yeah, so basically then you're going from spear phishing, which is, I think you have this exact problem, but I'm just going to tell you what that is from the outside, and bang, here I am, I'm taking a stab at it, and you hit it or you don't. And odds are you don't. And then the other side is very methodically filtering and distilling and building an actual relationship with this person to say, like, oh yeah, this is exactly what you want. This is exactly how I can help you, and take it from there. So that
The
that
diff-
makes a lot of sense.
The
Yeah.
difference between selling to a corporation, whether we're talking about a sponsorship or a contract, is they want to co create the solution with you. They don't want you pulling stuff off the shelf, giving them the canned thing that you work with everybody else, because they think, even though it's not true, they think that what they do is so special and so different. And so if they feel like you're going to approach their problem the same way you approach everyone's problem and you're just going to pull something off the shelf, they're going to be less excited about that. So if you are having a conversation with them about the problem that they're having, and you're having a co-creation dialogue of what the solution could look like, you're going to be much more likely to get to the end of closing that deal than if you are just saying, like, here's how we should do this. This is what we do. This is how we do it. They want buy-in from the beginning, and they want to feel like they've had a say in what it is that they're buying, instead of you just showing up with your package of this is what it is that it would look like.
Yeah, and I feel like part of that is self-preservation, right? Like if you're in a high-level executive position at a corporation, you wouldn't justify your job. And so to say, "Oh no, here's this other person that's giving you literally everything," it doesn't make you look good or particularly valuable. It's kind of cut yourself out, right?
The last thing they want to do is make a career limiting move by hiring you.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, you got to present it the right way. And that makes a lot of sense. So, I would love to take that a step further, because now that you've broken down so well the kinds of ways to more or less present yourself, build the relationship, and get to a point of a sale, it's a lot of these different positive things. But are there any sort of red flags in that process that, like, for me as the business owner trying to build a relationship, or kind of things that from the corporate side, they might look at this that they go, okay, I absolutely not going to work with this person?
The number one mistake that I see people make is they want to send over a sponsorship letter or they want to send over some level of pitch deck or, some collateral about themselves. That's not your goal. Your first goal is to get a meeting. You want to explore first, prescribe later. I've never said it that way. I need to write that down. But you want to explore first and prescribe later. There's a lot of advice out there that tells you to create a pitch deck, to create a sponsorship letter, and you're basically, again, giving away what it is that you want and what it is that it consists of. And then they're making a decision off of that. You haven't had the opportunity to answer questions. You haven't had the opportunity to overcome objections, and you haven't had the opportunity to discover exactly what it is that they want. So the biggest red flag is if you reach out to them and you're like, here's my stuff. Do you want it? It's going to scream amateur. So you save yourself a lot of time and a lot of heartache by trying to get a meeting to explore, not to immediately prescribe.
If you're looking for more ways to grow your business through podcasting, sign up for the SBX newsletter. The link is right here in the show notes. And each week in your inbox, you're going to get tips, opinions, strategies, all the things that we talk about here on the show in your inbox. The SBX newsletter right here in the show notes. Now, let's take it a little bit further, because the other thing with this is, and this is what I love about podcasting and business in general, is the idea that podcasting allows you so much to, by the nature of it, it forces you to make sure that you are talking to the right person consistently. You get to refine your messaging constantly. It becomes easier when you're in these sales conversations to talk to people and explain what you do and what their problems are, because you spend all this time talking about it. Like, you just live in that all the time. But the thing that might be new to people then, and I imagine would be something that also terrifies them about this situation, is pricing. So if you haven't had that business experience, because I've only worked with small businesses, medium businesses, now I'm ready to go hunt whales, Shayna. Like, I'm ready for the big ticket here. How do you approach pricing when you're first getting into that space?
It's a very difficult conversation to have in the context of this because I don't know exactly what people are offering. But think about how you buy things as a consumer. If you buy something that it sounds like what you're getting is massive, but what they're charging you to get it is way too small, then you're going to assume that it's not valuable. It's going to be the same thing for them as well. So I'll just throw out like some ballpark figures. And again, it's very difficult to have this conversation because I don't know what the people are offering, what size company they're selling it to, et cetera.
Yeah, how about
But let's
this? What
just
if,
say,
what if we did it for the health coach, right? So
yeah.
I've got a
So,
health
so
program and I'm doing workshops, and I'm going to do that with a large
right.
group of people.
I'm going to throw out some general numbers, but just know that I'm just trying to give you an idea of what it could be. There's so much nuance to this that don't hold me to it.
For sure.
This is really not
Absolutely.
a fair question to ask in this context, but I'm going to give
Sorry.
it to you. So, if you're going in, let's just say you're going to go in and do a 2-hour workshop. If you're not charging at least $5,000 for that 2-hour workshop, you're not competitively priced. They're going to know that you're an amateur, right? If you're going in to do a full day workshop and you're not charging at least $15,000 for that, it's going to scream amateur. If you have a 90-day deliverable and you're not charging at least 50 to $65,000 for that, it's going to scream amateur. So that gives you an idea of what type of dollars we're talking about here, but there's so much nuance to exactly what you're delivering, the components that you're delivering, that there's really no way that I can answer that question without having a deeper dive conversation that would take us 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, totally understand and appreciate that. So thank you. Let's take it back a little bit and go more to the podcasting side itself, because obviously all of these conversations and relationship building, it starts in the idea that the podcast is part of your positioning to build the relationship.
Yes.
So for the kinds of people that you work with, what does it look like for them with a podcast when they come to you?
Yeah. Here's what I love about the podcasting piece of this. And quite frankly, I've been teaching how to land corporate contracts and corporate sponsors since like 2010 ish, a long time. The reason why I'm now saying podcasters, this is something that you can experience, because for the 5 years that I've been podcasting, the ways that you can have those initial exploratory conversations are now so much easier now that I have a show. Why? Because now, instead of me trying to figure out how I get my foot in the door to have an exploratory conversation with Jane, I invite Jane onto my show. So, just like you and I do with any guest, you and I have done it twice now. Before we hit record, we're chatting. After we stop hitting record today, I can guarantee you our faces are not going off of the screen. We're going to chat a moment. So, the great thing about podcasting is number one, it positions you as someone that is credible, right? But number two, it gives you a way to bypass trying to get your foot in the door, trying to find out, like, what is it they're looking for? What is the exact words to use? Because I'm only going to have one shot in my email. Everyone loves to talk about themselves and what it is that they're up to, and people that work for companies is no different. So when people come to me and they have a podcast, I say to them, okay, let's think about what it is that your area of expertise or your service, your product, whatever it is. What are the conversations that you would need to be having with someone inside of a corporation to begin to move the conversation forward to get closer and closer to a sponsorship or to a contract, whatever the partnership deal looks like? So now if I reach out to Jane and I say, Jane, I know that one of the things that you're always concerned about as the head of HR is how you attract and retain top talent. I have a show that talks about all of the different ways that we can improve our performance and, how our performance is linked to our, whatever your thing is. Would you be willing to come on my show as a guest so that we can have a conversation about that? 9.5 times out of 10, you're going to have a lot easier time getting Jane to say yes to that because you know what to say to ask somebody to come on your show. You may not already be equipped unless you work with someone like myself or someone that understands this space to know what the exact wording is to land in someone's DMs on in LinkedIn, or if you have their email address, or if you met them at a chamber event and you now have their card, you may not be as well versed as to what to say. But if you invite the decision maker to come on your show, hopefully your interview skills are good enough that while you're asking your guest questions, that you're also giving your thought leadership. You're giving your point of view. You're sharing what it is that you've been able to do with clients. Guess what? Even if you've never worked with somebody in a corporation, you're able to share how you've worked with clients and how when you've worked with them, how it got better for them. Then when it ends, that's when you're able to say to Jane, I would love to have a conversation about how we could bring this to how you could bring me into your organization. That's the beauty of podcasting, is that it is an immediate door opener.
I almost want to stop there. I have so many more questions, so we're not. But like that's it, right? Like that's a show stopping. Like for everything, literally that I do with this show and this business, that you really distilled everything right there, Shayna. Like because for all the people, and this is what I see so often. I'll be curious for you as well. Obviously, as you deal with people who are professionals and have podcasts, but for people who have a show, one of the biggest problems that I see is they stall out because they're doing the complete opposite. They're bringing guests on for every single episode. They're not all related to their specific niche. They're letting that guest speak 90% of the time, and they're just asking a question here or there. They're not building their personality into the business, and they're not getting any results. And so I would imagine if somebody like that is bringing a show to you, that is a problem, right? Like what does it look like for you to or what are some of the common problems that you see with a show? What does that look like?
Well, that is one of the number one problems, is that a podcast without a business model is just a hobby. So your podcast should already be making business sense. If your podcast is not building a business or a bigger ecosystem of product, service, and partnerships, then you're already limiting yourself. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't have a show, but for me, it has to make business sense. I'm not going to do anything if it doesn't make good business sense. And so hopefully you're using your podcast as a tool to grow your business anyway. In this space, it's a great magnet for these bigger opportunities, these better clients, and greater exposure. But here's the number one problem. It's your positioning. The way 95% of us are currently positioned, we're only positioned for one way that we serve an audience. Let's use the health coach again, just for the sake of consistency. I'll use myself first. even though I've grown my podcast to the top 3% in the world, and even though podcasting is central to my strategy and podcasters are the primary people that I work with on the consumer side of my business, I don't brand myself as a podcast expert. I brand myself as an influence expert. So we have to look at what it is that we do in broader themes. And so the most of the podcasters and business owners that come to me, they're only positioned as a very specific way that they can serve their target market. You have to create what I call a transcendent brand. You have to think about your brand as an umbrella. So when you think about what it is that you help people to do, you have to ask yourself, how do I think about what it is that I do in broader themes? Right? Because if you want mass market appeal, meaning if you want to be attractive to corporations, if you want major media appearances, if you want to be able to get traditional book deals, they're not going to hire me to talk about how a podcaster can get a contract, right? But if my transcendent brand, if my umbrella is influence and the thought leadership and the POV that I'm putting out into the world is that the problem is that people don't know how to treat their influence like an asset. They need to learn how to own their influence. Me teaching podcasters how to get these bigger deals is just one way that I serve in my transcendent brand. I also can come on major media and talk about how a woman can own her voice, own her influence, and all the things that that helps. I can go into a corporation and work with their women leaders on developing their thought leadership and their executive presence. All of it falls under influence. So if we look at the health coach and I say, okay, health coach, right now you're helping moms lose weight, right? That's one way to serve your niche. But what if your transcendent brand was women's well being? Now, a corporation can bring me in to work with their women leaders on their well being because it helps them. A traditional publisher would be like, now that's something I can sell thousands and thousands of books because now we're talking about women's well being and not just moms losing weight. The Today Show might bring you on because it's Wellness Week, whatever the thing is. So we have to back up and we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we're really doing? And you can serve whatever it is that you're really doing in multiple different ways. It doesn't have to be either or, it can be this and.
And that's one of those things that just on a personal level, I love all of this because I've had to start to think about that myself. Like, I am a podcast producer. We're a podcast production company that helps coaches, consultants, people who are the face of their business with their business to grow and develop and all those things. But that is a very niche place. And that is the exact problem. So I've been thinking about that myself. And it's like, what are different ways that I can position me and this business and the skills that I have that I can get in front of a stage?
Yeah.
Because it's
So
it's a big name.
ideas that I have just on the fly is if I'm thinking about, okay, if you're a podcast production company, what are you really doing? You're really helping people get visibility, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, and I'm not saying that that's the one that you have to pick, but what I am saying is that if you think about yourself as I'm not just a podcast production company, I'm a visibility strategist because now you can help podcast hosts get visibility by producing their shows, doing all the things that you're already doing. You can work with entrepreneurs on how they can become more visible through having a podcast. The Today Show can bring you on and you can talk about why being visible is so important and why people are getting visibility wrong. A corporation can bring you in and you can say, listen, the problem is that your leaders don't have visibility. They don't have the right kind of visibility inside of the organization. Their visibility outside of the organization is trash. All of the different things that you can then begin to explore. So now you don't have to stop doing what you're doing now. You're able to add in all of these other high value opportunities because you took a step back. Here's the problem. It sounds contrary to most of the advice that we receive. We've been told to niche down. You're still niching down. You're just looking at it in a broader theme. So for the people like, I can't do that. I have to pick a niche. Influence is still a niche. I just didn't choose podcasting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it.
You
I
like
love
that
it.
voice?
It's so good. But that's awesome because it's very similar. Like, I've been playing around with this idea in my head because for me it's like I'm a hosting nut. So I'm very particular about the ways that people start conversations, manage time, the ways they're dealing with calls to action, the ways that they're interviewing, and the kinds of questions they ask, and all of that nuance, the topics they present. And so, with that, my thought was maybe it's hosting is a life skill, and thinking about how hosting can be one of those things that if you get it right, you can run cleaner meetings because you understand exactly what you're going to talk about in the meeting and be efficient in that meeting. You can, oh, I'm getting the thumbs up. I love it. Okay. The other side of it was even to the furthest extreme would be literally like first dates. And what's a good first date? Well, you're asking questions on that date. You want to know that person, right? You want to make sure that you respect the audience and you're not just talking to yourself or about yourself the entire time. You're talking to this other person and listening to what they have to say and reacting to those things.
We have to take a step back and we have to ask ourselves, what is it that I'm really doing? And how can I position it in a way that it's applicable to more people? It's still a niche, it's still very specific. That's just more scalable.
And that's what it's all about. So, I mean, Shayna, this is
Predictable and scalable. That's what I want in my business. I want income that is predictable and scalable.
that's right. And so, what if people want you in their business, Shayna? For everybody who's heard all this, I mean, you've had so much good information today, seriously. So, I've really appreciated this. But for anybody that's heard all of this and goes, I need to work with Shayna, like, how should people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So I have created something called the Influence Economy Playbook. And the playbook consists of multiple different things. It has a guide that has a lot of the strategies in it that we've, talked about today and more. It's got scripts, it's got templates, it has a visibility tracking tracking checker, something, I don't know. It's a tracker, checklist tracker. I was like, what am I trying to say? So that you can actually track the visibility that you're doing, but it also has a visibility ROI calculator so that you can make sure that the things that you're doing to be visible are actually getting you a return on investment. So I've got a formula and a calculator in there where you can actually take the visibility that you're already doing with your show and in your business and see if it's giving you an ROI. So if they go to, so it's all about, like, how do you really get these bigger deals so that your visibility actually becomes, more profitable? And so they go to influenceeconomyplaybook.com. They could get that. It's going to show them that it's $27. But since they're listening to the show, there's a place for a coupon code that says free. Now, listen, you got to follow the instructions. Because if you don't follow my instructions and you email me and ask me for your $27 back, I'm not going to do it because you got to learn how to follow instructions. There's a check mark next to the word when you type in the word free. When you go to this page, it's going to say it's $27. When you type in the word free and you click the check mark, it's now going to say $0. If you don't do that, it's going to charge you $27. And do not email me and ask for your $27 back because I used to do that. I used to say, if you mess up, don't worry about it. And I'm like, no, people got to figure out how to follow freaking instructions. So they can get the Influence Economy Playbook completely for free by going to influenceeconomyplaybook.com and typing in code free.
All right. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. So, thank you for that, Shayna. And again, thank you so much for being on the show. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe to the newsletter to get more podcast insights. That link is in the show notes. And if you're feeling stuck with your podcast, let's figure it out together. Book a free 10-minute chat with me. The link to do that is also in the show notes. Talk to you next week.